We're live.
Great. All right, let me hit got it. All right, give it a few seconds there. So how's the
It's
weather?
live now, Dave. Go for it.
Start.
It's live. Go start.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. Today we have the CEO of Sentia, this at Tahoe Dreaming in Lake Tahoe, hence the name Tahoe Dreaming. Appreciate you coming on, Dave, and taking a little time for us during the show. So I know it's exciting. There's lots of people there. This is one of the first Salesforce Dreaming venues where there's actually people that aren't just streaming, they're actually showing up there. What's the
Yes.
mood? Are people still scared of COVID, or what do you think?
I mean, it's nice to be out of the home and actually with real live people. I think obviously Salesforce had the Dreamforce conference a month ago, but that was a select invited crowd only, whereas this is open to the Salesforce community in general to come along to in Lake Tahoe. It's been a great couple of days. I mean, Tahoe's an amazing venue. The area is beautiful anyway, and we're in a casino convention center here. And yeah, it's well worth a trip. It's going to be on next year, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but definitely worth coming along. And it's the first in-person conference that's been able to be held open to the public for a couple of years now. I was talking to some people last night about how strange it is to be out in the real world with real people, and you kind of still at the point of masked up here, but we're able to almost shake hands.
Yeah. So is it the UN handshake now, or the fist bump?
It's a mix
kind
of
of funny.
both.
It's like, which one are they using, right?
Early on yesterday morning, everyone was fist bumping, but I think by last night, we kind of slipped into old habits, and definitely I shook hands with a few people, which could be a risk. You never know. Probably not.
Well, see, that's the problem there. You know, Sunday is the NFL game here. If you get tested positive, you can't play on Sunday at the big game. So
yeah,
I guess it's a
no,
big
that's
deal.
right.
So what do you think about the attendance there? You said that, one of the first shows afterwards. What do you think about the attendance overall?
I think given that you had to be vaccinated to come along, I think it's been a good showing. It'd be 250 people here, which for post COVID is probably a really good beginning. You had to prove vaccination. You have to wear a mask the whole time, but it hasn't really stopped the conference from performing. It's been a good agenda. It's Tahoe Dreaming is a conference for people who are really into the Salesforce platform. So developers, admins who like getting hands-on, and obviously vendor partners like ourselves, ISV partners. So it's a very enthusiastic crowd in any case. So everyone, the energy has been really high. It's been a good, strong conference.
Really?
We had so yeah, I'd say about 250 people. We were in Lake Tahoe where there were fires in the last month that were pretty serious.
Yeah, could you see the fire damage from the road on the drive in?
Not apparently, only if you're coming on Highway 50 can you see a lot of damage. Other than that, you don't. But it was pretty significant. We had the mayor talk at one of the keynotes yesterday. Briefly, there was a major Salesforce a partner made a significant donation to the town after the Keldor fires. The mayor was explaining they had to evacuate 23,000 people in literally a couple of hours and managed to do that with no fatalities. So the town's still recovering. She was very grateful that conferences are coming back and that we're all here. And most people made some sort of donation or contribution to the place. And it was good. It's definitely been a good day and a half so far, half a day to go.
Hey, that's great. Well, let's jump right into the highlights here. I know you've got a busy schedule, and being a speaker and stuff, they're going to be asking lots of questions later. So so far, what are the highlights that you've seen? I know there's a little bit more time left this afternoon, but after 2 days, what jumped out to you?
Well, through most of the conference, most of the sessions touched on Slack. Obviously, Salesforce had a major acquisition of Slack, $28 billion, I think. So
yeah,
got it for
it was last year,
great
right?
price.
Was that 9 months
great
ago now?
Price. Yeah, it was only confirmed a few months ago. So, so Slack was high on the agenda here. Most vendor partners have either announced integrations with Slack or they're on the way. Some of the speakers yesterday, I went to one session by the lead designer from Salesforce, the UX designer, and he spoke about how they see Slack fitting into their environment, the platform. And there's been a lot of work going on at Salesforce about deep work versus quick work. Deep work, and I'll kind of explain. Quick work is things you can just do quickly, like leave a note, log a call, look up an account's details, and all of that Salesforce hopes people will do from Slack. Whereas deep work requires you to log on to Salesforce and literally work on that platform, or other applications for that matter. So you might go and live in your inbox for some deep work on emails, or live on Salesforce for some deep work on your prospects or leads. But Slack will be the place to do all those quick tasks. So it will be your general, the location you generally work in day to day. So that was interesting that he was able to explain how Salesforce saw that working in the future with Slack, and why it was such a powerful acquisition for them.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, I mean, Sentia integrated with Slack years ago. So, I mean, you're one of the partners that Salesforce probably saw and say, hey, you know what, you guys are using Slack successfully for years. You don't actually make a purchase of that size unless a lot of your partners are already using Slack, and you were one of the companies that was using it many years ago. So, I mean, when you see what you did with Slack, 2 years ago versus what Salesforce is saying coming to the future, does that all make sense to you?
Yeah, I think we adopted Slack early on, long before Salesforce looked at it. And I think I just like the fact that enterprise software has to make people's lives easier, and living in one spot, wherever that is. In our case, we started doing that with Slack. Living in one location makes a lot of sense. This app hopping has to stop. This sort of hopping around between applications. It's not good.
Alt tab just takes time, right? I mean, that's one of the big complaints about CRMs. They keep alt tabbing.
And for internal communication, I mean, Slack's great. Email is terrible for that purpose. Emailing colleagues with information and requests for information is crazy. So Slack helps with that. So it's definitely we adopted it early, and Sentia plays well with Slack. So it's been in most of the talks at some point or another. The speakers have touched on Slack.
And are they having, so one of the things that I've seen happen with Salesforce in the past, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, is that when you bring in a new technology or a new large partner such as Slack in, it takes a while for people to get trained up. Were they talking about having trouble finding people that have that Slack skill set? Or was that something that really hasn't happened yet because it's so new? Because I know that for us, having that Slack knowledge took a while to actually get up to speed and figure out how to integrate with Salesforce. And obviously the rest of the ISVs are only like a few months in versus, we've been doing it for years.
I think it did come up at a couple of sessions I was in. And there's one or two vendors here who have helped companies with Slack integrations on their Salesforce system. But in terms of the attendees of the conference, I think it's too early. Most companies haven't quite got their head around. If they're already using Slack, then they've had some level of integration already. But if they weren't, and they're now looking at Slack, they're going to have to consider that.
And I think you'd be a fabulous resource for those people because you've been using it with Salesforce for so long.
Yeah. It will be a case-by-case situation. I think Salesforce has some big announcements with regards to improvement in their workflow engines for Slack coming up. I'm sure there'll be more for Dreamforce next year as well. So Slack's definitely not going away, and everyone needs to consider what they do with it.
Well, that's probably the most exciting news at the event. Obviously, 28 billion is a pretty big investment. Yeah. But with the other vendors and stuff, did you see anything else that you saw interesting? Any vendors that stood out, or some new technologies you thought was worth talking about?
They had a couple of sessions of demo jams, and for people listening that don't know what they are, they tend to invite 4 or 5 app vendors to come on stage. You get 3 minutes to do a fast demo. And 3 minutes is not a lot of time. To get people's, and we had 3 of those demo jam sessions that I've attended so far, and there were some really creative offers. There was a group called Mowgli that has a text messaging integration with Salesforce, who had I presume Mowgli, Mowgli.
Like, all right, we'll give them a shout out, Mowgli.
I think Mowgli's the bear in a kid's story, but anyway,
it is. It's the adventure books, right? It's the Jungle Adventures with the bear and Mogwai's the boy, right?
Yes, so that Mowgli isn't that. So Mowgli they have a text messaging integration, but their demo jam, 3 minutes, they had one. I presume she's one of their staff people. She did a rap, which
really?
It was amazing. I hope someone videoed it and
We'll
is
try to
going
get it.
to post a link because it was so entertaining and they won that particular demo jam. But in all the demo jams, it helps because we only got 3 minutes. It helps to have some humor. So Mowgli
Sure.
looked interesting. Gearset, a UK firm that has DevOps software, was
How do you spell
demonstrating, and that
that?
looked
K-I-S-E-T?
Gear, It's my Australian accent,
G-E-A-R.
GEAROPS.
Okay.
They looked interesting, and all the vendors that supported the conference have something to offer. So it was
Sure,
if you
sure.
go to
I
the
was just wondering
Tahoe
which one
Dreaming,
stood out.
Mowgli definitely looked interesting for text messaging, and it's their presentation, their user interface for send and receive messages between leads and contacts was really simple and easy to use. So if people are looking at how to integrate text messaging, I definitely suggest people take a look at Mowgli, like as in, yeah, the Jungle Book. Um, and all the vendors are listed on the Tahoe Dreaming website, so they're all worth a look at. There's some interesting offers there, very heavily geared towards developers, so not so much for admins at Salesforce, but there's a couple there that are definitely like Mowgli.
Well, I know that, Dave, I think you've actually created a website called CRM Secrets, didn't you? Which was
Yeah,
created for developers and for
yeah, and we'll
Salesforce
post,
admins.
correct, and we'll post some of those. We can put some posts on there with some of these app vendors from the conference as well, some detail on those on that site. So.
So do they have one of the things I find interesting, especially if we're looking at about 18 months since developers have actually met in person there, are there any big hairy Salesforce problems that these guys are talking about that nobody's figured out yet or are coming, or is it all everything's kind of smooth sailing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a Salesforce sponsored conference, so it's not, no one really rocks the boat, but and it's not that they're problems. I think in
Right,
terms of
right.
challenges, I think it challenges moving forward. Um, the Salesforce bought a company last year, I believe, MuleSoft, that offers integration between different apps. So if you have a Salesforce system and a different ERP system or accounting system, MuleSoft can help you connect those things together. And I think for most of the attendees, they're still coming to grips with how they can make use of that, MuleSoft. Slack we talked about at length, but no, there's not any huge problems with the system. Salesforce is doubling down on Trailhead. They're certainly elevating user interface design as an issue. So they've created some new trails for a new role that they're identifying. Salesforce, it's an expansion on Salesforce Architect, but it's a designer, Salesforce designer role, and they're releasing some trails for those on Trailhead. One set has been released, and there's more every day. So they're not really problems, but that's the Salesforce seems to be focusing more and more on user design, user interface design, UX, as well as integration with other applications and platforms with MuleSoft, and then Slack. So they're the kind of the big three focuses of the Salesforce business, I think, over the next year or two.
Interesting. So was there anything else that was either interesting or different or unusual that you heard over the last couple of days of the show? Anything that stood out?
No, I think just those things. The conference will be on again next year, so I'd recommend anyone who, obviously Salesforce developers and partners should be coming along, but also admins who really like getting their hands dirty and configuring their systems. It's worthwhile. It's going to be here in Lake Tahoe again in August next year. I think it's the 5th and the 6th. So put it in, everyone should put it in their calendars. It's definitely
That's a nice plug.
worthwhile attending. It's not an expensive conference to get along to, and it's a good community, and it's a bit of fun. I think the mayor was saying August is the best time to come and visit Lake Tahoe anyway for hiking and the lake, and I assume haven't had any time for leisure this trip myself. But they've planned to run this conference every year now for the next 3 years. So they've released dates. So I just recommend everyone comes along next year. It's been good. We'll be back next year, and there's some more dreaming. Tahoe Dreaming is going to be augmented by NorCal Dreaming. I think there's another couple on the East Coast. So they're good mini conferences to attend to expand your knowledge of the platform, Salesforce platform, definitely.
Well, I just saw 2 requests for people that are interested in more information from you. I know that you write a bunch of papers and stuff, and you can be found at Twitter at David G. Forder. And I know you're also on Sentia Corp for Twitter. What's your LinkedIn URL?
I think if anyone searches David Forder, Sentia, Sentia on LinkedIn, they'll find me there, or just email me, david@sentiacorp.com. And we'll always respond. So happy to talk to anyone about anything to do with Salesforce or our application, definitely. I look forward to it.
Yeah, so it sounds like, Dave, I mean, from at least from what Salesforce is focused on with Slack, I mean, you've been doing that for so many years now. I think you'd be a great resource for these folks. So again, folks, you can find him on Twitter, David G. Forder. You can find him on Sentia Says. He has a blog with a number of articles that he's posted there. You can also find him on CRM Secrets, also LinkedIn. You've done a number of live streams on LinkedIn. You have articles on LinkedIn. So lots of ways to contact David. And of course, you're welcome to contact me. David, thank you kindly for joining us from the show. I want you to get back on the floor and have some fun, but thank you.
All right. Talk soon. Thanks, David.
All right. Thank you. This is Sentia.